Joining us right now is Tristan Leavitt. He's the president of Empower Oversight. You've seen him on Capitol Hill. He was a classmate of Jordan's, also at Georgetown Law. Should put that in there. And Tristan is doing a great work helping whistleblowers go through the process, because the whistleblowers, when they come out and blow the whistle, so to speak, they are taking huge personal risk. And it's not supposed to be that way, but unfortunately it has been. Tristan heads up Empower, which is an organization that's doing great work. We encourage you to support their efforts. And Tristan also has a lot of experience on Capitol Hill, know him from his work there. Tristan, thanks for being on with us. I want to talk about the fact that what you're trying to do in protecting these whistleblowers, because I think people need to understand the immense stress that these individuals are put under.
Absolutely, they are. And, they knew this would be the case. Gary Shapley spent a lot of time, before coming forward. Certainly, there's a lot of different whistleblowers we've represented, right? And with some of the FBI whistleblowers and others, they've received scrutiny. But the IRS whistleblowers are receiving the most attention right now. And Gary debated for months and months, right? He couldn't sleep, couldn't decide what to do. But ultimately, he knew this was the right thing to do, even though, as Chris Clark, one of Hunter Biden's attorneys, had told prosecutors last fall that if they prosecuted his client, it would be career suicide for them. So Gary knew he was walking into the same thing, but he knew it was the right thing to do. So that said, it doesn't take away the human toll and the personal costs for them.
What you just said. I mean, you got one of Hunter Biden's lawyers, Chris Clark, telling the IRS agent involved in the case that if you don't knock this off, basically, this is not going to be good for your career. I want you to say that again so people understand. This is absurd that this would happen, but unfortunately it has.
Yeah. So it wasn't directly to the IRS folks, because they were cut out of communicating with the defense counsel, which is highly unusual. Prosecutors were having regular meetings with defense counsel, and none of the cases that either of these IRS whistleblowers have been on before cut out the investigators, the subject matter experts. But the IRS investigators learned, Gary and Joe learned last summer in August, as they were getting ready to bring these charges, that Chris Clark had told the prosecutors in Delaware, if you bring these charges against my client, you will be committing career suicide. And that's all the more significant because those years they were talking about charging at that time were 2014 and 2015, including the felonies for 2014 for failing to report bereavement income. So as more has emerged over these past months, I can't help but wonder if this wasn't just your typical, retaliation threat of committing career suicide, but digging into the money where there are allegations that Joe Biden was involved as well.
The irony, of course, of all of this is that they were in court on this plea deal, right? While your clients have been in the news, they're in court on this plea deal. The judge says, I've never seen a plea like this in my career. I mean, is there any precedent for this? And they say, no, there isn't. There's no precedent. No one's ever done a plea deal like this. And then yet, like the day after, or within short periods of time, you've now got these allegations going against your client about taxpayer information.
That's right. In fact, Axios reported on Thursday that the Hunter Biden legal team was fuming Wednesday night after the plea hearing. And that's when they decided to file this new motion that specifically accuses, the information, it accuses Jason Smith of releasing information that had this, but it pointed directly to just the information provided by our client, Gary Shapley, and by Joe Ziegler, saying that it was protected by grand jury secrecy laws, which is absolutely ridiculous. Those protect the proceedings, the deliberations of grand juries, not just a fact that happens to be out there. If a grand jury talks about the fact that the sun is yellow, you're not prohibited from saying somewhere that the sun is yellow. And so these are the sorts of, there was a lot of information that was provided to the Ways and Means Committee, but none of it tied to any grand jury proceedings. And then, of course, Hunter's attorneys also accused Jason Smith of releasing taxpayer confidential information. But in both of these instances, that's a direct shot across the bow of the IRS whistleblowers, because those are the sorts of things that the IRS could investigate. Again, in this case, we believe they're clearly in the right, as they provided it in the right way for the right reasons to the committee that has the means of releasing it. But, DOJ could launch a criminal investigation of 6E grand jury material being released. And that's what we've learned from New York Times reporting Hunter Biden's legal team asked DOJ to do a month ago. So they're doubling down on their efforts, and our clients are going to be in the crosshairs.
You have a tremendous amount of experience in all of this with your work within government as an appointee and also on Capitol Hill. The idea with the whistleblower statute was to protect whistleblowers so that if there is something being done that they believe needs oversight by Congress, in this particular case, that Congress can then have information to do with this. It seems that the activities that are going on have reduced, because of the retaliation aspect, have reduced the whistleblower protections to a nullity. Is that a statement? It's very concerning.
It is. And it's challenging because the laws only protect against government action. So whatever Hunter Biden's attorneys do isn't contemplated by the law. But even within the IRS, right, Hunter, the folks that worked on the Hunter investigation, including the case agent, including Gary, were all taken off from the IRS at the request of DOJ. Gary's supervisor, who he spoke with multiple times a day prior to his disclosures, now hasn't spoken to him or returned his calls since June 1st. It's been even longer for his second level supervisor. And so, we had an extensive meeting yesterday with the Office of Special Counsel, my former agency, not the Mueller Special Counsel, but the one that investigates retaliation, because they're looking at these and they're looking at how there is a pattern of taking away Gary's job responsibilities and cutting him out of his role. And again, that is exactly what was contemplated by the anti-retaliation statutes that have been in place for a very long time, going back to 1978.
Yeah, Tristan, that's what I was going to ask you next, is the retaliation aspect of this, which puts a tremendous toll on these IRS officials. Same thing to the FBI officials too. They put them in this kind of in a box almost, where suspend their pay. They can't take outside income, so they can't live. I mean, it's so that you got whistleblower protections, but they're meaningless. I mean, you've dedicated your career to standing up for whistleblowers, and that's what you do at Empower. The situation seems to be getting day by day more intense. Is that a fair reading of the situation right now? There are more whistleblowers coming forward?
There's a lot. And, I will say in the interest of fairness that there have always been a lot of, there have always been problems in government. So there's always been a need to protect whistleblowers. And people have asked me in months before if there's more of a war on whistleblowers. And I've been hesitant to say yes, because, again, people have never liked to hear inconvenient information. But especially in the past few months, IRS whistleblowers, before that FBI whistleblowers getting attention. And one of the challenges is that on Capitol Hill, there used to be a bipartisan consensus. So when I worked for Senator Chuck Grassley, the godfather of modern whistleblower protections, I proposed and we created a Senate Whistleblower Protection Caucus. When I worked on the House Oversight Committee, this was something that I had very close interactions with the Democratic staff on. Everyone understood that regardless of this matter or that matter, protecting whistleblowers as a policy was critical. But now staff on certain committees, particularly the House Judiciary Committee, which has gone after these IRS whistleblowers, and especially these ones who've had their clearances suspended, can't do outside work, again, can't even make a living right now. It seems like the House Judiciary Democrats have made it their personal mission to ruin these guys' lives. And so I would say there is a war on whistleblowers coming from some quarters of Capitol Hill, and that's extremely concerning. It's all part of why we've stood up this new fund. There's a website, defendwhistlblowers.com, that your watchers and listeners can go to, and it's to further protect whistleblowers like Gary, whistleblowers like these FBI whistleblowers, because we continue to see people coming out of the woodwork, and I don't think there's going to be any change in that. I think they're going to be continuing to be a lot of whistleblowers who recognize problems in the government and want to see them fixed.
Let me give a couple of website addresses here first. To get information about Empowered, Tristan's organization, what's the best one for that? Is that
empoweroversight.org?
Empoweroversight.org.
Okay, and that's empoweroversight.org. We encourage you to go there, support the work that they're doing. They're doing a great job. Also, Tristan mentioned defending these whistleblowers. There's a fund up. You go to defendwitnessblowers.com as well. That's another resource to get information. And those are the best places to go, correct, Tristan?
Yeah, defendwhistlblowers.com. That's right. And that's that's separate from the general fund. That is for whistleblowers like Gary, like these FBI folks, these law enforcement whistleblowers who have such critical information because of the investigations they've done. We need to make sure they're not silenced or chilled.
We appreciate you joining us. Tristan, again, heads up Empower, great organization. Encourage you to support the work. Tristan, thanks for being with us. Look forward to having you on again.